I am ready to release all the fear
Beauties, welcome to
inside,
Hormone.
trusting I am held
Wednesday.
in the light
Woo!
by divinity.
To survive from. So great to be here with you today. It's just great to be with you.
I am ready to receive all the love that's given me, 'cause I know that I am worthy, yes, and more please. I am ready to release all the fear, anxiety, and I trust that I am held in the light by divinity. So done with playing small, knowing I am made of stars, and that I am the love that I'm looking for, knowing that my heart is my home.
Survive here for a minute. That's so beautiful. Oh my gosh, we're so tired of playing small. We're made of stars. Isn't that so pretty? Oh my gosh, so gorgeous. Well, welcome to Hormone Breakthrough Wednesday. I am so glad you're here. And just say hello if you're joining in live, and please say hello if you're listening to the replay. I read every single comment here, so I want to make sure that I get to see you, that you're seen. Yes. And any questions that come up, we're here to answer them for you. And my very special guest, who's coming on in just a minute, will also answer questions for you. She's also in this group and can really support you in a powerful way. So I want to say hello to beautiful Rachael O'Meara. Hi, Rachael.
Hello, Robin. Hello, all sisters near and far. It's so great to be here today. Thanks for having me.
So great to have you on. And I want to tell you a little bit about Rachael. So today is very special because we're coming into the holiday season. This is when we can easily go to burnout, overwhelm, stress, right? All of that. And so we naturally do that anyway. But the holidays bring more, and especially now with sort of the way things are shaping up. It's putting more stress on many of us. It's creating a much more uncertainty. And so now more than ever, we need to take charge of our health. We need to become the CEO. So I bring you guests who can help us to do that, because we know with burnout, stress, overwhelm, it wreaks havoc on our hormones, just wreaks havoc. And we can't feel well. We can't show up for ourselves. We can't serve at the highest level possible. We just can't. Because we. So I'm just going to make sure it's giving me a notice that my sound has changed, but it looks like it's all changed back. So let me tell you just a little bit about Rachael. So today's topic is really, reclaiming your life before the holidays. I love that. Most women experience burnout, overwhelm, and stress that leads to hormone imbalance, a compromised immune system, and a really poor quality of life. And I know because that was me. So it's time to change the paradigm so you can heal and feel so much better. So we're going to learn the 3 steps that you can use right now to shift out of burnout. You can learn what real nourishment is and what it isn't. And you're going to be able to create your active pause plan immediately so you can start to intentionally shift your behavior. So let me tell you a little bit about Rachael. She is a transformation and leadership coach who empowers women to learn the emotional intelligence skills to thrive at work and beyond. She's had a decade in sales and client services at Google that has helped her have a pulse on what it takes to be a success while maintaining your sanity and well-being. Her book, Pause, was named one of 2017's top business books for your career. She's been featured in the New York Times, WallStreetJournal.com, and on the TEDx stage. She received her master's degree in transformational leadership and coaching from the Wright Graduate University in 2020 and has an MBA from Fordham University. She lives in San Francisco, where my son is with her husband, and aims to pause in service for her doing as much as possible. Yeah, it's a lifelong challenge, right?
All the time.
Our message. So welcome, Rachel. It's so great to have you here.
Oh, thank you, Robin, and thank you so much for the intro, and all of you for being here today. Like Robin always says, this is a congratulatory time. You made it. Like, good job. You paused with us for this time. So give yourself a pat on the back or a little mini hug. This is actually a great self-care move, by the way. Just even allowing yourself. You can notice I'm wearing a shawl. Every time we're wearing if you wear a wrap or a shawl, it's actually like imitating the swaddle even, and you can feel more comfort, believe it or not. And that's all kind of based on my training of how we can bring ourselves to bear in this world that's 24/7 and always on. And I'll share a little bit about my story and how I ended up in this work. Similar to Robin, a lot of this happened to me where I burned out. And I just want to say, I know in this community, there's so many of you who are challenged and working for the better of your life and creating what you need for it. And so that's like so incredible, from the embracing the physical and like all of the things that you're aligning with your system to prosper and to reach your potential for that and your hormone balance. And I think of it like pausing is the same for your mental and emotional health. So it kind of aligns just like that, where it's like you've got then the physical, the emotional, the mental, and then the spiritual, which is this overall guidance for just like where you want to go in life and nature and in the universe that's really pulling you forward, no matter what your beliefs are. So I just want to preface that. And I call a pause, by the way, any intentional shift in behavior. So you being here, you creating the space for yourself to improve in the ways that you want to for your health and your life, that's a pause. It doesn't have to be meditation or mindfulness. I mean, it can be, but I think of it like this umbrella term for everything to kind of fall under. So to give you some context a little bit, I mentioned, how I ended up in this world. I heard Robin mention Google. I still work full time in that world. And I was just in the office today, actually cleaning out my desk. So it was very, very barren. No one's there. It's like dead. So I've been there for 13 years. And it wasn't always a rosy picture for me. I work in sales. I have clients. I manage accounts in the Google sphere, in the world of advertising. But a couple of years ago, I actually hit a wall and burned out. And what was going on was, when I look back, I really wasn't present. Meaning I was always either thinking about my future, like, oh, what do I have to do next? Or like, I got to run on the go and finish this report. Or like, how am I going to prepare for this Monday morning email? So I better sit down Friday or Sunday night and finish something up. So I was either future tripping, or I was in the past. I was thinking about like, oh, I wish I could have done this better. I shoulda, coulda, woulda. If I'd only said this in the meeting, if I'd only like gone out for that example run the day before. And so I just wasn't present, meaning I wasn't aware of what was going on in the moment. I wasn't aware of how I felt. I wasn't aware of burning out, like feeling depleted, feeling exhausted, feeling overwhelmed, because I just kept spinning my wheels. And I don't know who here can relate to that. Like, who here spins your wheels just thinking, if I just maybe eat this thing, or if I try this different thing, and then you just continue to get in that cycle. And it's like a vicious cycle, because for me, it was a mental tailspin. It felt like I was just like on this path, no matter what I did, no matter how I was going about things. And it wasn't for a lack of trying. I'm sure many of us here are incredible achievers, right? We're all like the superstars of our life in many ways, but there's these aspects that keep us stuck. And so for me, that was the case. I was getting feedback. I wasn't doing well in my job, and I wasn't a good communicator. I didn't have executive presence, like all these things. So what ended up happening was, instead of quitting, I took a short leave of absence to really reassess where I was, because it wasn't for lack of trying, but I didn't know what to do. I felt really lost. So I went home in San Francisco here and actually chose not to fill up my schedule. For 3 months, I thought about what I really wanted to do because I didn't really know what my plan wasn't working. And so I ask all of you, think back to a time where maybe you were in a situation, or maybe it's even happening now, or a friend that you support who feels a little overwhelmed, or even with the holidays coming up, it feels like there's a lot going on. And with COVID and pandemic times and social revolution, we all know there's a little more on our plates these days, right? So the idea is that I did go back to Google where I'm at now, but things were really different. And it's because I ended up being in that more present state, in that more aware state. And I think for all of us, like that's a big message for today, is that when we're either in our heads, we forget we have the neck down sometimes, even when we're focused on healing our bodies and ourselves, we forget. We are just like so wrapped up as cerebral thinkers sometimes. And so my invitation to all of you is to know that if you're feeling that overwhelm or that stress, or as Robin, you like to say, pleasure, stress management is pleasure. Like those are things that can be improved. We can all learn these skills. If I can do it, I am positive like anyone else can do it, because for all I know, I didn't have an inkling of what to do, but I ended up going back to Google and started studying emotional and social learning through a company called the Wright Foundation in Chicago. And so here I am 8 years later. I'm a coach and I help people on the side with this information because I know we're all living sometimes through the motions, or kind of like getting from the next thing to the next. And it doesn't need to be that way. And so that's what my big mission is to help women who feel overwhelmed or stuck reclaim their lives. And that can be on the physical plane, but it can also be in that emotional plane, which is so important to feel fulfilled and not just like be feeling good, but like really emoting that and living that through the joy and the sadness and the fear and the anger, like everything integrating so that you can live your best life and flourish. And that's really what I wanted to share a lot about for today.
Awesome. So you've mentioned some really powerful things, and I know that one of the things that you said was, that there are a lot of rock stars in this group, and there absolutely are. Like if you're in this group, I think that you are an incredible rock star because you've already like taken that step to start to figure things out for yourself, right? This is the natural solutions for hormone balance group, and you are looking for ways to support yourself naturally in a really powerful way. So you're a rock star, and I just like you to like put a heart for yourself. If you're one of the ladies, if you're someone who feels any stress right now, or any overwhelm, or any burnout, like, are you one of those ladies? Just give a heart or a thumbs up, right? We want to acknowledge you. We want to send you so much love. There are definitely times when I feel that and have to check myself. So Rachael talked about how, a lot of times we forget that there's anything from here down. How many of us have done that? Like we're just here. We're just like a head spinning all the time, right? We're just in our heads, and we can't get out. It's really hard to get out of our heads and into our bodies. And so Rachael mentioned pleasure. That's one of the ways we can do it. Rachael, how does a woman know? Because oftentimes we are so wrapped up in our own stuff and our own lives that we don't know if we're in trouble. So how do we know if we need to really pay attention today?
Yeah, I think that's so important. And I think especially as women, there's research and statistics on this, that we tend to take on more and we feel guilty about it as a result compared to most of our male counterparts. So it's really important. I think the first step is to be aware and to notice what you're feeling. I think is one of the biggest things. And there's a lot of feelings going on right now, and there's people behind screens, and maybe you're living by yourself or feeling a little isolated. And when that happens and we don't express, it's actually not necessarily serving us, because we are bottling things up. And when we're not able to express, either we avoid things and we just keep going, or we are uh, we bottle it up, and we just aren't being in our truth, almost like we're not being authentic to what we would want to express. And I call authenticity being true to who you could become. So I have 5 signs that I think about if I know I need a pause. And again, a pause is an intentional shift in behavior. And so, being here, I think, is a pause in itself. And that would align with one of my signs, which is there's a challenge in your life. So something's not working right, or something's out of whack. And it's not for a lack of trying or effort. It's simply something that needs to be realigned. Just like I burned out of Google, I needed to realign with my strengths and what I wanted to do. And so that's one. Another sign is that you used to love what you do, and now it feels more like a pain in the butt, or a drag, meaning your motivation is down, or you're just not feeling it. You could also have a technology intervention. So if you maybe give yourself an intervention, thinking like, yeah, I'm on the screen, I'm on my phone 8 hours a day. The average American checks their phone at least 250 times a day, which is probably even more now in the pandemic. So it could be like that, or if there's someone that cares about you and just says, hey, I noticed you're on your laptop all the time. What gives? Right? In that loving, kind way. But maybe it's the wake up call to be like, yeah, maybe I am a little tethered to my devices. And that actually is a challenge in itself for many reasons. And then the last sign for women is if there's an opportunity. So if you actually have an opportunity, like a passion project, I think in this point of time with the coronavirus, there's a lot of opportunity for creativity, and maybe tapping into things that you'd put off, or even if you're doing too much, it's about redirecting that energy into what can serve you. And so I think all of those things can be signs to say, hey, maybe I need a pause. It's just for me in terms of realignment. And again, it's not tied to time or money or what you do, but it's about how you are and the quality of what you can do to have intention around what you can also shift for you.
Yeah, that's great. So you said, so how you know if you need a pause is if you have a challenge in your life of some sort, you used to love what you do, but you don't anymore, or you don't feel as motivated, right? Technology, you're on technology too much, or I really think it's an obsession. So if you're obsessed with anything that isn't really nourishing you, that's a wake up call.
Yes.
And then the fourth was if an opportunity, passion project comes up. I wasn't really sure how that was a way you would know. If you
Yeah. So I think of it like that, like an itch you want to scratch. Like there's just something that you've been thinking about for a while. And maybe it's like, let's just take the example of gardening. Like, maybe you've always wanted to grow your own herb garden and you just haven't. It's been a busy time, and now you've got kids at home to feed and things like that. So what if you created the space to allow yourself to start planning for an herb garden? The idea is that we can be satisfied so much more when we meet these deeper hungers. And there's probably a deeper desire there to create and to matter in ways that you don't right now. Things like that. And also have fun and feel alive, which are the ways that we get fueled out of and feel more replenished when we are experiencing that overwhelm or feeling a little bit stressed.
Oh gosh, I absolutely love that. Like
Yeah.
nourishing your deeper hunger, doing things that really matter. I mean, I can't think of anything better for balancing your hormones. That's
Exactly. Yeah, you talk about this all the time, Robin. And a lot of times, like, how often do we hear that critic voice in our mind that just says, "Nah, not today. You're so busy. Why bother now? We'll do it later. No, like maybe 2021." Right? We just kind of kick the can down the road. And so one of the things I want to share today is what nourishment is and what it isn't, because this is really key. And I think a lot of us, I would love to hear maybe in the comments, what do you think nourishment is? What comes to mind for you? And not necessarily food. This is just nourishing your mind, your body, your soul, like the whole picture, right? I know I used to think it was, and Robin, I'd be curious to hear what you said, but like I used to think it was getting my nails done, going for a run,
Getting a massage.
getting a massage,
Yeah.
dancing sometimes, things like that. And some of those are nourishing, but the actual definition of nourishment, and this is from my training in emotional intelligence, is anything that helps you learn and grow that happens in the here and now. So there's a couple things there. So one is learning and growing. If you're not growing, is it nourishing is the question. And really it's not. So go back to that question, like what's nourishing? Getting my nails done, getting a massage. Am I learning there? Not so much. So you're getting like a surface topical level pleasure, and it's great, and there's nothing wrong with that. However, like that deeper desire, satisfaction, which can actually activate oxytocin and bring down those cortisol levels and get you into that parasympathetic nervous system, that is all something where you are learning and growing. And this is the kicker, you have to be present for it. So you can't be thinking about something and saying, well, I'd love to take a trip to France when this opens up. That's going to be great. And yeah, that'll be some positive experiences in your mind. But if you actually aren't like present to it, where you're actually doing something or feeling something, then chances are it's not nourishing. And then what ends up happening is we kind of think we're doing things that are really positive for us, but they're really kind of surface level. They're not touching those deeper desires, those hungers that we have called yearnings that we can have get met when we're nourished. So I say that because we wonder why we're depleted. We wonder why we're running around like chickens with our heads cut off. It's because we're doing all these things and they're not nourishing in a way that really feels satisfying. And that's huge. Like that is so huge. It changed my whole outlook when I learned that. And I don't think about getting my nails done to be nourishing anymore. I think about how I could have a conversation that feels fulfilling, or take a risk that feels a little scary, but I know will like end up with me saying a truth that might feel vulnerable, or learning about someone. That's what a pause is to me. It's an intentional shift in behavior, but it also, can have a real strong outcome for nourishment. And tie that to the holidays, right? So now we've got Thanksgiving coming up, and there's holidays right around the corner in December. And so when we think about getting nourished, what would really serve you? Like what could be nourishment for you? And a lot of times it's not what we think it is. And there might be a little bit of, satisfaction there, but if you really want to feel like the oxytocin going off in your system and feeling that glow that can last for hours or days, then we really need to reassess what is that nourishment for you. And that can be so much more than what we usually think it is.
I would love for you listening to post in the comments, like what is something, Rachel used the term, kicking the can down the road. What is something that you've been kicking down the road, right, for putting it off for some other time? Like what's something that would really nourish you? Like she said, flying to France or taking a trip to France, that's not really an option right now. So what could you replace it with? Like what is something that's kind of been gnawing at you that you really, really, really want to do or embark on, but you haven't? Like what is it? So just post it right here. We'd love to see what that is. And when you post here, you're kind of putting it out there, right? That it's something that you want to do. I'll tell you what I did recently. I've been thinking about one of my clients is a flute player, a flautist. And I used to play the flute years and years and years ago. And I thought, how wonderful would it be to get back into that? Because music for me is so nourishing. And so I finally did it. Okay, it took me a long time, but I bought a flute. And I am now I bought a flute and a beginner flute book. I didn't know if I could even remember how to play the notes or anything, but it's really amazing how it comes back. And I feel so like happy when I'm playing and learning. And now I'm thinking about, okay, what's my next book going to be? And when am I going to start taking lessons? And so it's just what, like Rachel is talking about, those things that are above and beyond. Rachel, you mentioned, getting your nails done, or, getting a massage, or, and I would tell my clients when they first started working with them, you need more time for yourself. Like, that's one of my things. You've got to have more time for yourself. And what that got interpreted as was getting your nails done and getting a massage and, doing all the self-care, sort of external self-care things. So then I would get back together with my clients and I would say, how was your weekend? Oh, well, it was good. I got my nails done and I got a massage. Like, the whole weekend was scheduled out with these things. And it's like, wait a minute, like, we need to pause. We need some downtime. We don't need to just schedule ourselves out more. So what is pause and why is it so important?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, you're just speaking my language there so much, Robin. And I so relate to like blocking out my calendar, getting it all full for something else. So here's the thing with pausing, and we can all think of it in our own way. Again, it's an intentional shift in behavior. And so it's about what works for you. It's actually an individual response that can be very different across the board. So it can be sipping your favorite detox tea every night at 8 o'clock before you go to bed and wind down. Like, that is a ritual that could be so nourishing. And like what you could be learning is just reflecting. Maybe you're journaling, maybe you're just taking in those senses. So you're smelling the tea, you're tasting it on your lips and the warm liquid, and you're like reflecting on your day. And that's growth. Like, you're bringing that into how can this be in my benefit? So there's those kinds of things. There might be, like, a lot of us might be on a forced pause right now. And I talk about all these different types of pauses in Pause the Book. Forced pauses are when we literally maybe get laid off or we don't have a choice. And so the idea is it's not about a passive play. It's not like kicking up your heels and binging on Netflix, which it can be, but again, it's intentional. So if you were to do that, the idea is how can you make it nourishing for yourself? So now you all know the definition of nourishment. So maybe that means you're going to do it for 2 hours and like create a rule around it. I'm going to do it for 2 hours and then I'm going to put myself gently to bed. And like that serves you to refuel. So that could be something you do. It could be essentially something that is active. Like, the word pause is, in many ways, we think of it as a passive word. It's like not doing anything, but I'm working in the world to change that so that it's active. It's like an active, intentional shift in behavior. And again, it can be something that takes courage for you to do, like having that conversation that you've been putting off because you don't want to make someone feel unpleasant, and that feels hard for a lot of us. So it can be very different things to different people, but it's about what works for you. It could be something like meditation. It could be a walk in the evening. It could be looking out your window for 20 seconds in between meetings. It doesn't have any specificity other than it's what works for you. And every time you do that, you're like going to the blood bank. If you're like the blood donor giving the blood out, meaning, like we're always feeling depleted as women, I think, and not always, but we tend to, because we're giving and over giving. And the idea is that what if we actually gave to ourselves first and we allowed ourselves to feel fulfilled so that everyone around us can benefit from that? And I know, Robin, that's one of your mantras as well.
Yeah, absolutely. When we think about pause from a hormonal standpoint, you're really lowering those chronically elevated cortisol levels, right? Yeah. So, Rachel mentioned a lot of ways that we can pause. I mean, just, having that lovely cup of tea and reflecting or journaling or, looking out the window and daydreaming could be a really nice pause. When we do that, we now lower our cortisol levels. And cortisol it's our fight or flight hormone, but it's also our daytime hormone. It's our doing hormone. It's our hormone that sets our circadian rhythm. So it's really the overseer of our light and dark cycles of the day. And so I was just talking to a client about this. If we have a busy day, meaning our cortisol is elevated all day long because we're stressed out, for one reason or another. Maybe it's just that we're too busy, or maybe we have some big things going on in our lives. Then you're going to have a busy night, right? So that pause can really help to lower cortisol. And in the 15-day hormone reset that's coming out pretty soon, we're really working on balancing cortisol and insulin, those two big hormones. And so if you can pause to help to modulate cortisol during your day, like that's huge. So Rachel, chime in here.
Yeah, I totally agree. And and as you say, it's this alignment. So every time you have a moment to pause, and like it could be to sit down for your meal. It could be to take the breath, the daily pause of just a belly breath. You could practice gratitude. All of these things are activating the rest and refresh mode, the parasympathetic nervous system that we've all probably learned about a little bit. So to me, it's the gateway. Like if you actually just pause for that moment, it's a gateway to so much that could be then opened up as a result of having that space. As I like to quote Viktor Frankl here, the Holocaust survivor who wrote Man's Search for Meaning. And he says, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our choice to create the freedom, or to create the space. In that lies our freedom. And I think it comes back to choice. So we have a choice to pause. You all have a choice to change your life and be on the road to the best body and physical presence and emotional being you could possibly be. And that's a conscious choice, right? Like you didn't end up here on autopilot. So when we pause, we're actually bringing our thinking brain online in a way that serves us, in a way that gets off autopilot. But it's hard, right? Like it takes courage to be here. It takes some accolades to also know, like, hey, like I want to shift things. Things aren't going great, and that's sometimes hard to admit, and it's hard to follow through, and that's why it's important that I think the pause is just like that little sliver of something that you'd start, and then you would be able to be curious about it. And then we're getting into these 3 tips here, but like being courageously curious about what could be different for you is, I think, a huge asset. And that's in itself is a way to pause as well.
And many of us, I know it's so easy to say. I mean, I hear this all the time. I don't have time to eat right. I don't have time to get enough sleep. I don't have time to take care of myself or do any self-care. And I certainly don't have time to pause. So what would you say to someone who says that?
Right. So that's a very frequent thing. Even I say that sometimes when I'm busy. We're all, intensely doing things these days. So the quote that I like to use is, "Do you have time to feel like crap? If you don't have time to pause, do you have time to feel like crap?" And to me, that kind of reframes it, like, oh, like, yeah, I guess I don't really want to feel like crap, but that's what happens, right? We all kind of have experienced this in some ways. And so my philosophy is pausing isn't an act by itself. It can actually be integrated as a mindset, as a way of being, so that you can go out throughout your day by day, where you take even little micro pauses or mini breaks, mini pauses that can help to refresh and reset that parasympathetic nervous system, to lower those cortisol levels, so that you can go throughout your day and just feel energized and feel connected to yourself, to know how you feel, know what's happening. And I think that's a really powerful way. If you're up for one, Robin, we can try a daily pause. It's super simple. It's the gratitude.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, let's try the belly breath one here first. So this one's, hopefully all of us can do this one, where you're either sitting or standing. Uncross your legs, uncross your arms, and go ahead and put one hand on your diaphragm, on your abdomen. You could put one on your chest as well, whatever feels comfortable for you. You can close your eyes and just take one deep breath through your nose, feeling your chest expand, your belly go out, and holding that if you can. Take a little more in and slowly exhale through your mouth. Keep going, exhale. Open your eyes if they were closed. Remove your hand. So I'm curious, how do you feel, Robin, just after that one breath?
Oh my gosh, it feels so good. Feels so good.
Yeah, it was one breath. And to me, that's mind blowing because, again, like that's us going online from autopilot and we're here talking about it, but yet we still feel that difference because we're intentional about it. I have another really good one that I think is great for anyone who sits in front of a computer like me all day, most of the time. It's called a micro pause. So if you want to hold up one hand, if you can hold up your hand about 6 inches from your face, and I'll do it turning sideways here so you see me. Go ahead and just notice your hand and use your, what are you noticing about your hand? Maybe the texture, the color, you can kind of move it around. Maybe there's fleshy parts or bony parts. Maybe there's jewelry. And then, yeah, just notice your hand. Simple sensations, hot or cold. Go ahead and take a breath and blow into the center of your palm of your hand like this. So you feel the breeze of your breath on your hand. All right, and then lower your hand. You can turn around. So that took about 30 seconds. That's a micro pause. And what we're doing with that, now, did you feel different for that, Robin?
Yeah, well, I was pausing. I was looking at my hand and I wasn't focused up here. I was just noticing. I think that when we notice, I think that really takes us out of our head and into our bodies.
Yeah, well, exactly. I'm a big fan of experiential learning. And so what we're actually doing there is, you'll love this. When you feel the breath, you're actually moving your focus in your brain to the sensory experience, and you're getting out of the limbic system. You're getting into like the thinking brain of like, that feels cool. I wonder what that is, because it doesn't necessarily, you don't normally feel breath on your hand like that usually. I don't anyway. So you're using your sensory, your five senses, what you see, what you feel, touch, taste, and smell. And you're also activating your parasympathetic nervous system again. That feels good. It's like a relaxing little breath. And that's one that I think is really, it's almost fun to do, and takes 30 seconds. There's no time, but if you even did that once a day, it just resets a little bit. And it's another opportunity to have a pause where if you don't have time, like if you don't have 30 seconds, then I think that's a sign that you definitely need a pause, and maybe there's time to create more for that in your world, because we all need that self-love a little bit, even if a minute or 30 seconds, that's so important.
Yeah. So Rachel, before we get to your beautiful free gift, is there anything else that you want to share about pausing? I mean, we talked, I think the main concept for me is getting out of the fight or flight, right? Getting out of the reactive, you're just reacting to your day all day long. So getting out of that and moving into proactive, right? Being proactive about your life and your health. And Rachel talked about, the moments between, what was it, Rachel? A reaction and a response, or is
Yeah.
it?
Pretty much. Yep.
So it's that moment between where you get to choose, your response, because life is busy, life is hectic, bad stuff happens all the time, right? And we get to choose how we respond to it. And so that pause puts us into the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest nervous system, which just helps our hormones to flourish in such a big way. I've heard many of you talking about how, you're estrogen dominant or you're insulin resistant, right? That's because you're in the sympathetic fight or flight nervous system too much of the time.
Yeah.
Oh, it is. It's not that you need to take progesterone. You just need to get into the rest and digest nervous system more of the time so that your body can, because you're so busy making cortisol all the time. And that just ages us really fast. So if you want to have a real motivator for using some of the tips that Rachel has shared today, you create accelerated metabolic aging if you don't pause. That's what happens. And you get really wrinkly and you lose muscle and you feel fatigued and worn out and more overwhelmed if you don't pause. So I'm putting some fear into you so that you take better care of yourself, so that you're more in the present moment in a place of love and there to serve at a much higher level. Because when we're all filled up, right? We can be there to serve so much better. So yeah, so give us like a quick wrap up, and then I want you to share your beautiful gift.
Yeah. So I think the biggest message I have, and I talk about this in my TEDx talk, is we think that maybe overwhelm and stress are inevitable. It's like we, as women, it's just part of life, and it's where we are, even, whether it's hormone balancing or anything else. And that's just not true. That is just not the way it has to be. Kind of like what you say, Robin, about having to realign with your hormones. It doesn't have to be this like dismal end of your, like the third of your life or something like that. It's actually, it can be the time you are most radiant and flourishing. And I think the same thing about this, as pausing can become an asset for you. And when we can do that, it changes our lives. And I think the biggest thing I would say is, it's not inevitable. You have the choice to shift it, but it takes effort, like anything that's worth it. And you can start today. You can start today with that micro pause and a daily pause plan, which is essentially just picking one thing that you want to change. So thinking about, like, what's the one thing that came up for you today that you'd want to shift? Maybe it's going to bed earlier. Maybe it's resting and digesting for your meals a little more. It could be anything, but whatever it is, write it down. Potentially, when we write things down, we actually feel more connected to that, and it becomes real. And then come up with, what's the one thing that you'd want to do about that? Like, what's the intention behind that? Is it to feel healthier? Is it to feel more rested? Is it to have more quality time with your family? And then that's the pause plan that you can have. You can implement it by bedtime tonight, whatever that little step is. Change happens in incremental steps. I call it the law of little things. And that's my big message, is that it can start anytime, no matter where you are or what you're doing, but it starts with a choice, your existential choice to be different.
That's so beautiful. It's a choice, right? We just make all these choices all day long, and we just need to make more choices on behalf of ourselves.
Choices for us.
Yeah, choices for us, because we don't want that FLC. We don't want to feel like crap anymore. Like, we're done with that. So done with that. Thumbs up. Yeah. Okay. So you have a really special thing coming up called the Overwhelm Fix, a very special event. So tell us more.
Yes, I'm so excited to share. So December 7th through the 11th of next month. So we're talking in a little less than 2 weeks, a little more than 2 weeks. I'm doing a 5-day Facebook training. So it's called the Overwhelm Fix. The Overwhelm Fix. You don't want to miss it. We're going to be going into details about all of these things and doing exercises and contests and prizes and all of that stuff. So I'm super, super excited. I would love to have you join me. If you're resonating with anything that I shared today and like, yeah, pausing, I need some of that, then join us. It's totally free. And you can join us at the Facebook group, which is my private community called Be the Pause. So you can just search for B-E, the Pause, Rachael O'Meara, and you go there, and we're going to be having the Facebook training in December 7th, starting then.
So it's coming right up. Perfect thing to do during the crazy holiday season. It's perfect.
Get you set up.
Right?
We'll get you set up.
I mean, it'll just help you be there for yourself. Remember what's important. Set some boundaries, all those great things. We posted the link right here.
Self-soothing in 5 minutes or less. We're talking, it doesn't take a lot of time, and you're worth it.
Yeah. So I'm so excited for you. You have this amazing opportunity to join Rachael. So be sure to hop on over to her Facebook group so you get all the information. And is this taking place in your Facebook group, the Overwhelm Fix?
Yeah, it's going to be in the Facebook group. There'll be a little RSVP just to make sure you get all the details. Okay. But yeah, if you're already in there, we'll be going in there live just like you do, Robin. And I'm super excited to help our community basically support each other and learn this powerful technique that is called, what I call pausing, but it's really a compilation of all of these emotional intelligence tools that can change your life, along with all of
I love the tools, because they're, like you say, just those little micro pauses are so powerful. Well, I already feel so much more relaxed, in a place of just peace and calm, just being with you and learning these great tools. How about you, ladies? You feeling a little bit more grounded? Yes. Well, thank you, Rachel, so much for being with us here today.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. It's a blessing to be here today with all of you. Thank you so much.
Yay. All right, everyone. We'll see you next week right here for Hormone Breakthrough Wednesday. Sending Rachel so much love and sending all of you so much love. Bye, everyone.